God. All right. Hi, everybody.
Hey everyone.
Hey. So we're sick.
Yeah, it's such a coincidence that Chris and I got to get sick at the same time. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo.
Oh, it's fun. So we're putting off our next episode on the KTMA Mighty Jack
Mighty Jack.
until we're better. And we're going to do something we haven't done in a while, which is package together some of our superfan bonus bits that usually only the lovely people who give to us over at Patreon get to listen to. But I hope they don't mind that we're sharing some of them with you.
Yeah, especially considering, oh my gosh, guys, if we had to record an episode right now, ooh, you got to be kidding me. Wow.
Yeah, especially because you've got that whole musical segment coming up. It's going to be great.
I know, right? I mean, and when I have to do throat singing to get that harmony, it just really requires a little bit more.
Yeah, it's hard to do circular breathing if you're not breathing at all.
Indeed, people don't realize how important breathing is, Chris. But I feel like we're here to let everyone know.
Oh boy. All right. So we've got 5 lovely bonus bits for you today, and let's just let you know what you're going to listen to. From our episode on city limits way back in the day, we've got a little bonus bit we called "Can't We Just Discuss Beyond Thunderdome?" It's about apocalypses.
And it seems like a very valid request in this day and age. But we do get to talk about our favorite apocalypse movies.
Some of them, something like that.
Some of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Once that one's done, you'll be listening to a little bonus bit about synchronized swimming that we did, sort of talking about the Batwoman, but we did for our episode with Colossus and the Headhunters.
Yeah, there was a riff in Colossus and the Headhunters that reminded us of the synchronized swimming stuff that we talked about in our previous episode on the Batwoman. Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, we're also going to give you the bit from the Batwoman, the bonus bit from that episode, which is all about the film Turning Red.
Which I really enjoyed watching, and we got to talk about all of that fun stuff. And I swear it made sense at the time why we were talking about Turning Red when we were watching the Batwoman. I also really loved that when we watched The Sword and the Dragon, they had that big, awesome opening number where Tom was a dungeon master. And the short that you'll be hearing after the Turning Red one is Chris giving the lowdown on what was accurate and what was not accurate about Tom's dungeon mastering.
Yeah, the campaign that I talk about in that bonus bit just wrapped up the other day. So that's exciting.
It is.
And then finally, a recent one, we've had a bunch of episodes all about animals lately, and we've got one from the Deadly Bees. We've got a little bonus bit called 5 Bees and El Greco. So how the heck do those things relate to one another? You'll have to wait till the end of this bonus episode to find out.
It's so true.
All right. That's what everybody gets. You can hear all of these and more if you support us over on Patreon. And if you do that, you can also hang out with us in a Discord. Although we have not been active on that Discord the last couple of days because I don't know. I don't know why. I can't remember. It was so long ago.
It seems like we're at that point in time in sickness where memory doesn't form anymore, everyone. Oh, by the way, this is an episode of It's Just a Show where we'll be going to show you some bonus bits. And I think the bonus bit we're going to start with.
There we go. All right. I just ordered a hot soup and I'm told it's here, so I got to go try to drag my body to that.
Chris, I hope you feel better soon.
I hope you feel better soon, and listeners, I hope you feel better soon. Yes. And we'll see you in a bit with KTMA episode 14, I think, Mighty Jack.
In the meantime, enjoy these bonus bits. Geez, if any of the students in my classroom had atomic bomb energy for 20 seconds at a time, I think I might just explode myself. I don't think I can handle it. That's a lot of energy, just saying.
It is a lot of energy, and it's the kind of energy that could lead to the
Dun,
apocalypse,
dun, dun.
which is more or less what has happened 15 years ago in this movie. This is one of those movies that take place after the apocalypse. It was, 15 years after the Second American Civil War.
I think Barbed Wire might be the best movie ever. And secretly, this podcast is an ode to Barbed Wire, or perhaps not so secretly.
Well, of course, famously, Barbed Wire is the movie that got all of the advertising budget from the studio instead of the MST3K movie. And so a lot of Misties are pretty salty about Barbed Wire, but it is really good.
Really is.
Both of the films are good.
Neither of them really had much success, though, unfortunately.
No, but there should be room in your heart for both of them.
There should be. Don't harden your heart to Barbed Wire, Misty fans.
Are you a fan of the, driving around in the post-apocalyptic world genre?
I have to say, it seems like there are so many movies about what happens after the apocalypse or just before, or, some movies that attempt to do both, like the entire Terminator series. But I don't understand why cars and motorcycles are such a huge part of how people imagine what life will be like after the apocalypse, or at least how people in the 80s imagined what life would be like after the apocalypse. Somehow they thought at the time, or were envisioning at the time, that, 90% of the world's going to die off, but we're all going to be riding around in cars and motorcycles somehow. So that part of it, I don't understand, but it seems like there are so many movies that used motorcycles and cars as a prop for understanding the apocalypse, and just threw those cars and motorcycles in some sort of a desert, which is so strange. Most famous of which is probably the whole Mad Max series. But there's several of them that go through this, including Warrior of the Lost World, which I think you were mentioning earlier as a movie that this movie reminds you of. But also films like No Blade of Grass, Warriors of the Wasteland, or The New Barbarians. There's also one that several of the websites I was reading about, Motorcycle Culture, mentioned, which is Akira, which takes place in post-apocalyptic Tokyo. So, there's so many.
It's not really post-apocalyptic Tokyo in the same way. It's more like a Blade Runner-y future. So there's infrastructure. There's motorcycles are a big deal, but there feels like there's enough infrastructure to sustain car lifestyle in Akira, whereas not so much here.
But that's the thing, is all of these other movies have to have some sort of infrastructure in order to have cars and motorcycles be sustained for more than a hot minute after the apocalypse. Because, I don't know, it seems like such a strange juxtaposition for me for this movie, or lack of juxtaposition, that they're just talking about, okay, we're going to be riding around in our motorcycles and driving from the country into the city and back again several times. But there's no mention of resources, right? I mean, it doesn't seem, there's some energy and hospital resources that the Sunya Corporation is thinking about, but we never talk about gas, we never talk about water, we never talk about food, and all of those become major plot points in the Mad Max series, particularly gasoline.
So the only Mad Max film that I've seen, well, the only two I've seen, let's say, are Fury Road, which I absolutely loved, and the music video for We Don't Need Another Hero, which I think counts as having seen Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. I'm not sure, but I think that counts.
No, I mean, I've seen Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, and you actually also need to see the scenes where they say things like, two men go in, only one comes out, or, you need to see Master Blaster. There are some things in Beyond Thunderdome that absolutely need to be seen.
All right, you say that, but
Tina Turner is the main reason to see that movie. But that whole society that Tina Turner is the pinnacle of is something where she's controlling resources, right? And that's why everybody is playing her games inside of Thunderdome. And I think it's the second Mad Max movie has a colony of people who are living at a oil, the things in Texas that extract oil from the ground. What are they called?
Derek?
They're not oil. Yes. And they're around that. So it's not an oil refinement plant, but it's actually taking oil out of the ground. And they're trying to maintain control of that. And, the Mad Max character becomes a part of that struggle. But it's so weird that that's not even mentioned inside of this particular movie, because it seems like post-apocalyptic films that tend to have a culture of cars or motorcycles are at least focusing on that issue of having the resources to actually maintain your motorcycles and your cars. Because otherwise, again, a hot minute past the apocalypse and there's nothing left for you to burn as fuel.
I feel like Fury Road talks about that somewhere, but it's been a while since I've watched it. I mean, the movie's all about the baddie and Morgan Joe sort of hoarding water resources. Like, it's very much about that. But in terms of like, where do they get all the fuel to drive the cars? I think they address it. I can't remember. It's been a few years since I saw it. And, that wasn't what I was watching it for.
And I haven't actually seen Fury Road.
Oh, you must. It's real good. It's better than Barbed Wire.
Shut up.
Get out.
God, I love that movie.
Remember how we weren't done talking about the Batwoman?
Yeah. I feel like we could talk about the Batwoman forever. She's just amazing. I admire her. I want her outfit, and thankfully I can get it from Emily.
Exactly. And she also spent a lot of time underwater,
which is the natural habitat of bats, as we know from watching the episode.
So I was very excited when in this film, a couple of guys fell into a river and Mike quipped,
and thus synchronized swimming was invented.
And I thought, you know what? We talked a little bit about synchronized swimming and about Esther Williams in the Shell 13, but let's talk about her and it some more, because synchronized swimming is kind of neat.
And you can never have enough underwater references inside of Mystery Science Theater 3000, because there's so much water in space. It makes perfect sense.
Hey, I've got a question, a little trivia question for you.
Uh-huh.
Why is it called synchronized swimming?
It's not just because that's what they're doing, swimming in sync with each other.
Aha, you fell for it. You fell for the same trap I did. They're not swimming in sync with each other because there's such a thing as solo synchronized swimming.
Is there?
Yes.
I did not realize that. I guess I just haven't really been paying that much attention.
In fact, that's the original one. No, it's synchronized to music.
Oh. Well, they don't call it synchronized ice skating. Why is it synchronized swimming?
Well, in fact, they don't call it synchronized swimming anymore either. A couple years ago, an official body changed the name to artistic swimming. And begrudgingly, it seems like most people are going along with that now, especially the Olympics are.
Okay.
It also wasn't originally called synchronized swimming either. It was originally called water ballet.
Ooh, well, that's very, descriptive of what they're doing. It is like a dance.
Yeah, and it certainly started out with, let's say, one toe in the dance world. There were some organized competitions in Berlin in 1891, apparently.
Whoa.
But it really became popular when a woman named Annette Kellerman made it popular, performing at the Hippodrome in New York City in 1907.
Ooh, that sounds exciting.
It is exciting. So exciting, they made a whole movie about it.
They made a movie about it. What's the movie called? The Annette Kellerman story?
It's called $1 Million Mermaid, and we linked to a clip from it last episode.
Stop! That's amazing. If I was Annette Kellerman and I knew that Esther Williams played me in a movie, I think that would be like the greatest compliment. Esther Williams was amazing.
Yeah, well, apparently Annette Kellerman wasn't so sure about it at first for a number of reasons. First off, Esther Williams had redone a movie that Annette Kellerman made because Annette Kellerman was so popular that she made some early films, including one called Neptune's Daughter, which was then remade in the 40s by Esther Williams. And they changed the plot, and Annette wasn't too happy about this. Also, she thought Esther Williams was too pretty to play her.
Well, I mean, that's why it's a compliment, right?
I suppose.
I mean, she certainly has the, like, equivalent of chops for swimming. I mean, like, she's incredibly accomplished at the swimming feats that she is able to do, and she's just an incredible athlete. So in that way, like, what a compliment to have her play you.
Have you ever watched any, like, full Esther Williams films?
I have, yes.
Do you remember which ones?
Oh my gosh. So the Esther Williams film that I remember watching most recently is the one that she was in with Ricardo Montalban.
Oh.
Where they sang Baby It's Cold Outside. It's one of the first movies to use that one, but I don't remember which movie that's from.
That is called Neptune's Daughter. It was originally made by Annette Kellerman and then remade.
Nice. I did not at all remember the name of it. And it's been so long since I've seen it, I in no way remember the plot. Other than, like, Ricardo Montalban shouldn't be courting Esther Williams, but is anyway because there's an undeniable attraction between them.
Yeah.
You know, and she, like, does a big dance routine in the water.
Yeah. That's kind of also the plot of Million Dollar Mermaid, which is nominally about the life of Annette Kellerman and how she became a big deal. But it's really fictionalized. It adds in a stupid love story. It completely misrepresents what her actual husband was like, apparently. She was kind of salty about that.
Oh, yeah.
And here's one of the fun things. Annette Kellerman is from Sydney, Australia originally.
So cool.
Sure. She then moved to London and then to New York and then to Boston. And she moved around a lot before she started making movies and becoming properly big time famous. But I've managed to track down what I believe is her actual voice talking in an interview. And she does have an Australian accent, just like none of the actors in Million Dollar Mermaid.
Well, you know.
They all talk with American accents, except for the people who are playing French characters. They talk in bad French accents. The movie is, shall we say, inessential. Esther Williams does a perfectly fine job with a really boring script and some unimportant stuff. And really all you're doing while you're watching is waiting for the big scene where she does the water ballet choreographed by Busby Berkeley, which is fantastic.
Yeah. Those things really were amazing. I mean, the spectacle that they put into those water ballets, I'm still floored by it, right? Watching things that were created, 80 years ago now? 70 years ago? I can't imagine somebody launching a spectacle of that size in a movie these days, or that being really the point of it, you know?
Well, they sometimes try to recreate it or make parodies of it. One of the places where I first heard about synchronized swimming or scenes like that from movies was from The Great Muppet Caper, where there's a fantastic recreation of an Esther Williams type thing with Miss Piggy.
Yes. So good.
It's really fantastic. I just watched it again today. It's real good.
Because Miss Piggy is amazing.
Of course. And again, the technical feats of having the puppets coming in the water and having underwater Muppeting is like mind-blowing, like all the Muppet movies. It's like, what? How did you do this?
How did you do that? Yes, I agree. I agree entirely. I mean, the physical feat for a human actor to do that is amazing. It's also equally amazing what the puppeteers, I'm sure, would have had to do to make that happen.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There was also recently a movie called Hail Caesar.
Oh, I think I've talked about it on this podcast, haven't I?
I think you mentioned it last time in passing, and I hadn't seen the scene you were talking about, but it's a recreation of an Esther Williams type character, and they recreate basically the Million Dollar Mermaid scene.
Yes, with Scarlett Johansson.
Yes, but it's not as good.
No.
It's good enough for the movie, but it's not as good.
No, I mean, and it really can't be. And I think what they're going for inside of that scene is a little bit of, the spectacle of water ballet, blah, 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 blah. But then they're really looking for the shock effect of when Scarlett Johansson actually starts talking. And she's talking in just like a very crass, lower class kind of accent, New York type accent. And she is not the darling that is being presented in the movies. So it is It's a phenomenal scene. They use Scarlett Johansson very well inside of it. And I mean, Scarlett Johansson is not a swimmer by trade. So
No,
it's amazing
exactly.
that she was able to do so much of that water ballet.
So I want to just quickly sketch out that in the 30s, a water ballet club started doing team tricks, and this kind of led to a bunch of people doing the thing at the same time vibe, if I'm understanding the history correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It became a demonstration sport in the Olympics in the 50s and only became an official sport in 1984.
Was 84 LA, or was that the one that was in Moscow?
That was LA.
Okay.
And for the first time in the Paris 2024 Olympics, there will be men's synchronized swimming. Or men will be allowed on the teams. I'm not actually 100% sure how that's going to play out, but men will be allowed to perform synchronized swimming as well.
Nice. So you're not sure whether it's going to be like women synchronized swimming and men synchronized swimming, or whether it's going to be like co-ed type teams. Is that what you mean?
Right.
Okay.
I believe it's currently team swimming and duet swimming.
Okay.
And I think men will be allowed on either of those. There certainly is duet synchronized swimming between men and women, sort of like, I don't know, ice dancing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't have full details about it. I've just been cramming some of this in my head. I watched some of the gold-winning performances from the most recent Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
There was a performance by the Russian team of Svetlana Romanisha and Svetlana Kolesnichenko.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'm saying that wrong. It was a duet event. It was absolutely jaw-droppingly amazing.
Ooh, I hope you're going to put a link in the show notes to that.
I will totally put a link to the show notes to that. The music is weird and intense. Their movements are very, I don't know, Lady Gaga, let's say. It's all very
wow.
Lady Gaga in a way. It's just great. And I do wonder, like, I feel like watching these clips, they're amazing. The athleticism that goes into it and the precision that goes into it and the care that goes into it
Mm-hmm.
are absolutely jaw-dropping, especially when it's at this peak level.
Yes.
But I also think this is a sport that is greatly improved by having a camera in front of it. I would imagine. I've never seen it live, but I get the sense that being able to frame these artistic movements and having a closer look at them as opposed to watching from the bleachers
Yeah.
and just seeing a giant pool with two little figures inside of it spinning around, like, I think the camera really adds a lot to that, especially when they can go underwater sometimes. And I imagine that's hard to see.
Or just have a from above view, right? I mean, I'm thinking of the swimming sequences in Hail Caesar as well as in those Esther Williams movies. There's some where that above view is really what you want to have. I mean, almost like so many dances, right? Where you have people who have one color swimsuit on their front and a different color on the back. And so they're flipping back and forth and creating patterns, as well as all of the synchronized movements that are happening. Like, there's some really amazing use of costume and color as well as choreography. Unless you're above, how would you even see it?
Yeah, no, the BuzzFeed Berkeley numbers absolutely require overhead and big crane shots and all that stuff. It's good. Anyways, all I'm saying is that I've gotten to take a little bit of a deeper dive into synchronized swimming, artistic swimming, whatever you want to call it, and it's neat. I could go on for much longer, but I feel like we have to. I feel like those chimes are about to ring.
So be it. The other thing, and I'm not sure if they're referencing this entirely, is the whole red panda thing for the human-animal hybrid.
Right.
Because there's a Pixar movie about a girl who turns into a red panda called Turning Red.
Yeah.
So it is about a human red panda hybrid. And I don't know if they're referencing that. It's a great movie about a girl being 13 and, wanting to understand what it means to be changing from a girl to a woman. And she gets her period for the first time. And it turns her into a red panda because this is like a condition that her family has. All the women in her family.
So I haven't seen this movie, despite it being a well-received Pixar film that takes place in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
But I did just lean over to the shelf near me where I keep my tape deck, and I've got, okay, you can't tell what that is, but that is a stuffed red panda.
Aw, That's because red pandas are awesome.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's what the joke was, just that red pandas are the best and who wouldn't want to be one.
It's true.
But that's a really interesting reading of it, right? Like that episode would have been made around the time Turning Red came out last year, and it fits. Like it could be that, but I think mostly it's just a celebration of how cute red pandas are. Listen to their call. It's totally not just me hitting a stuffed animal against a mic, and it's absolutely the sound that red pandas make in the wild.
Yes, the adorable, adorable call of the red panda. The movie's been out for a year, so I don't feel bad about doing this, but spoiler alert.
She dies.
No, a building-sized red panda destroys Toronto's Superdome in the course of the movie.
That's fine. Leaves the CN Tower behind?
The CN Tower is in many, many, many scenes, and it still remains in Toronto at the end of Turning Red.
That's fine. I got no beef with it.
Also, a boy band helps save the day. I don't want to say that boy bands would not have come up in MST3K before, because I'm sure they did, but also let's embrace it.
Well, they didn't come up this time either.
I brought it up. Hey, everybody, it's me, Charlotte, and I love boy bands too. Chris, you're a dungeon master.
Sure, yes.
You play D&D.
I do.
I have not played D&D in years and years and years. And when I did, I was a kid, and my friends who were the dungeon masters were kids. There's a bunch of things that happen in the D&D opening sketch, and I just want to know, are they accurate at all? Can I run them by you?
Yeah, you can, but they're not accurate.
Oh, is that easy? All right. Well, that's really good. We've already talked about how there is no Middle Earth Crestomathy, so that's not right.
Well, let me just say, sort of on that although I talked earlier about how Middle Earth and D&D like don't go together, like you could set your D&D adventure anywhere, and you could set it in Middle Earth. That's not an official setting because copyrights and such, but you could do that.
Sure.
But if you want to play Middle Earth Adventures, there is a specific RPG that is officially licensed and designed for it, and I am dying to play it. I've picked it up. It looks super interesting. I would like to play it. It's called The One Ring. There's a starter set that's all about Hobbit adventers, and it looks super charming and interesting, and I'm super curious about it. But I need to get some people to actually play it with me. I'm trying to get the By the Bywater people to record a special one-off of it, but that hasn't happened yet.
I mean, it has to come around to the right person choosing the topic over there for that to come up, right?
I suppose.
So, but when you're Dungeon Master, do you have a special costume that you wear? Do you wear your wizard robes?
I do, actually. I don't wear wizard robes. Let me be clear. And it's only been on this campaign, but this current campaign that I'm running is set in what's called the Spelljammer setting, which is to say D&D, but it's in space and it's weird and wacky. It's very much inspired by Flash Gordon.
He'll save every one of us.
Yes, it's got that kind of vibe where like you never know what's around the corner and so forth. And also their version of space is like brightly colored. So imagine like lots of sort of rainbow colored clouds misting through the black background. And so I decided to get myself a scarf that matched that vibe, just to have a little bit of flavor and a little bit of kick. We play online, we play over Discord, we put our cameras on if unless people are eating or something, and like so they can see my scarf, and I wear that. And then we recently went into another part of space which was more silvery with pink and purple flecks in it, and so I got a new scarf just for that. and so I've been getting themed scarves to go with the setting. It's a very small thing. It's not full robes like Tom's doing, but it's been a fun excuse to pick up some pashminas.
Nice. Do you think that this is common for lots of dungeon masters to have some sort of a piece of an outfit, if not a full outfit?
I think a lot of dungeon masters, especially if they're doing it in person, try to do something to set the mood, and that can be lighting or props, or it could be costumes and makeup. And actually, some of the recent seasons of a D&D show that I watch called Dimension 20 have involved a lot of like face paint for some of the characters, which has been really interesting, both for the characters and the DM. So, I think it's nice if you can do it. If like that's your vibe, like nobody feels obliged to do it. It is just something that if you're into a little makeup, a little putting on a show like that, then it's a nice thing to do, but absolutely not required.
Nice. Do you think that lots of dungeon masters come in like hot and demanding like Tom does, where he's like, silence?
So that's an example of a bad dungeon master, which of course it is, right? That's Tom's character, is that like he's large and in charge. He wants to be the booming voice of authority. And so give him a little bit of power. It'll take a lot. And that makes perfect sense for the sketch. But like what Tom is doing is very bad dungeon mastering. But it's kind of like I don't think they had a sense of, because I don't think they played D&D. So I don't think they had a sense of the tropes of like what bad DMs are like, but they certainly knew what demanding nerds are like. And there's a bit of an overlap there. So I think it's coming from that.
Fair enough. Now, Mike chooses to be Delmar, the Elfin King. Is that a Middle-earth Tolkien character, or is that from D&D? Both? Neither?
I mean, you've read as much Tolkien as I have. I don't recognize that as a Tolkien character, but I guess there's a lot of appendices I haven't read and a lot of Silmarillion I haven't read. I will say, it is totally normal for there to be pre-generated characters that a DM might offer to a new player, especially if it's like, this is your first time playing. My first proper game of D&D, I was given a character by the DM, and I was given a few to choose from, and I picked the one that I thought I could do something with, and it was tremendous. And I played that character for like 2 years, but that's a nice thing that you can do, or with a one-off. You don't, which is to say, a game that is being played over just like one night. Then you might create something for them.
Does the dungeon master make it, or is it coming from a pre-made book? Because it sounds like Tom Servo's like, here's a book of characters, choose one.
Absolutely could be either.
Okay.
The Middle-earth game that I was just talking about, the starter set, all about Hobbit adventures, comes with pre-gen characters, which are from the Hobbit or from Lord of the Rings. So you can play as Lobelia, which is Lobelia, what is her name? Sackville Baggins. Sackville Baggins. Lobelia Sackville Baggins, or whatever, one of these other random characters. So sometimes the adventure or the book or whatever will come with pre-generated characters. Sometimes the DM will just make up a few and say, here you go. I've done that for little quick adventures where people didn't have time, or maybe there's a very specific story you're telling and it just makes sense to have a little bit more
specific characters.
Yeah, a little bit more of a sense of who exactly is coming on this adventure and why.
Nice. And I know there's a Balrog in Middle-earth. It is what Gandalf faces when they're leaving the mines of Moria. Is there a Balrog in Dungeons & Dragons separate from that?
There is not a Balrog because that's a copyright issue.
Mm-hmm.
There are a few things with slightly similar names, but I don't know if they're supposed to be connected to it. There's a thing called a Barog, B''ROHG, but that seems like it's a big giant-y type thing. And there's also a type of demon called a Balor with big wings, and it does like fire stuff. And I don't know if either of these are really Balrogs, but it does feel like they borrowed some ideas in D&D from Tolkien, but they don't want it to be.
They adjust it just enough.
They rub the serial numbers off,
Sure.
or they take some inspiration. Yeah.
Sure. Well, that seems fine.
And, of course, a DM can always just invent a Balrog. There have been it's called homebrewing, plenty of homebrewed Balrogs that people have made and put on the internet to share with each other. You can do that. So it's like in D&D as it is written in the books, then, there isn't a Balrog. But D&D is not just what's written in the books. It is what the people at the table decide and agree upon as part of their game. So you can have anything in that setting.
Fair enough. I have 2 more things that I wanted to fact check.
Okay.
The spell of Zortan.
No idea.
Okay. So the Balrog casts this spell on Tom. Tom shudders, feels like he has to take his own life now. That spell, they just made it up.
That's technobabble, so to speak. Fantasy babble, as far as I can tell.
Fair enough. And then At the end, when Mike is taking off the Dungeon Master costume, telling him he's gone far enough, Tom says that he was about to enter a deep level of like Blinafaha or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what it was.
I could not figure out what he was saying. I wasn't able to see anybody online with a suggestion for what the heck that exact line is. I think he's just making up something that sounds kind of magic-y.
It sounded kind of Klingon to me.
Well, I also was looking on Klingon sources for things that
you are so good.
that might be, because
It
that
has
also
to
occurred to me.
reference some kind of nerddom. Which one is it?
Well, it's one of the tricks with doing this kind of show is that you don't want to say it doesn't mean anything and then not have thought of the thing. So, you gotta be careful, or you gotta try to at least. And so as far as I can tell, that is just nonsense that he's making up. But I could be wrong. And if you know exactly what the reference is and somehow it has escaped all the other MST3K commentators out there that I've seen, then yeah, feel free, write in. I'd love to know if that's actually a thing. But I'm perfectly happy if it isn't a thing, right?
Yeah. No, it's true. They can make up whatever they want to.
That's how D&D works, and also writing television shows. Hey, don't leave the call just yet. We
Okay.
did that in an appropriate amount of time, which means I want to talk about something for a bonus bit,
Oh,
which we don't
okay.
usually do. We normally expect there to be something, but
It's totally true. Well, you know what we didn't cover when we were talking about bees?
I had something else in mind, but we could go for it.
Oh, no, go ahead. You should do that because I don't know as I could fill up very much with, like, if you're keeping bees in your yard, you can't have more than like 5, and you have to like fill out all of this stuff. And there's a whole
5?
beekeeper association. Yeah,
5
I can-
bees?
No, 5 hives. I can
Oh,
have
okay.
freaking on my property without doing anything. I can have up to 5 hives. Can you imagine 5 beehives on my property?
I mean, yes, that doesn't seem that hard to imagine.
It does to me because because you have to have enough flowers and enough vegetation inside of the area to be able to support those hives. Like it's your responsibility as a keeper of bees to provide enough material for them to survive. And you have to maintain, the health of all of the hives. You have to keep them from swarming. You have to keep them from getting too hot. Like all of those things are things that as a responsible beekeeper, you have to do. But I can have up to 5 beehives without having to register with the state. I know, but I am supposed to inform my neighbor if I am going to have bees. So apparently, like, you can go onto some websites inside of the state of Oregon, and they have like a form letter that you can fill in your information, and you have to give it to all of your neighbors that are within, like 500 feet of your house or something like that.
Right, in case they're allergic or something.
Well, yeah. And there various people react differently to having bees inside of the area. Some people think, oh my God, this is so awesome. The pollinators are out. I love bees. And other people are like, I'm allergic and this can kill me. This is not an okay thing to happen in my neighborhood. So like all of those things are fair enough. But it was very interesting to see just kind of the laws inside of a fairly urban area like Portland, how they deal with bees. I don't know if things are like super different in Toronto. I would imagine they are because you guys get way colder winters than us.
It's true, and I didn't look into it because there's no way I'm keeping bees.
No, it's true. Honestly, there's no way I'm keeping bees either. I can't even imagine. But there are people inside of my area that make teeny tiny little beehive houses. They're not like beehives that you would keep in order to extract honey and stuff, but they're just little, like maybe like half the size of your usual computer monitor. And they have like little rolls of paper inside of them that the bees can use. And it's just for a very, very small colony. But they do that in order to encourage more of the native bees, the non-honey bees, who are also really important pollinators inside of the area. So, support your native bees.
So there's something that I wanted to talk about, but it wouldn't have worked really well because it's a visual thing. And that's always tricky to do.
Yes, that's true.
But I got a little bit excited because at one point, Mrs. Hargrove, before she dies, I think right before she dies, if I remember, is walking around and you see sort of a bit of background in the scene. And one of them I believe it's Tom, says, did El Greco do the background?
Oh, yes. Who is that?
Oh, I'm sad that you don't know, but I'm excited that you get to find out.
Ooh, okay.
So El Greco is a painter, or was a painter.
Mm-hmm.
He's a painter from around 1600, the years before and after that.
Okay.
And he was a Greek painter, as you might guess from his name. His actual name was Dominikos Theotokopoulos, but he moved to Spain and he was known as El Greco. And he painted a lot of interesting dramatic works when he was in Spain. He was part of a movement called Mannerism, which was all about exaggerating things to get more of a dramatic effect out of them.
Oh.
And as such, he quite appealed to me as a youngin'. When I first got introduced to him in 7th grade art class.
Yeah.
There's a painting of his called View of Toledo,
Okay.
which is a landscape painting by him. And I will send a copy of it to you.
I Googled it. I got it open right now. Wow, that sky is dramatic. It looks like there's a storm coming in.
Exactly. And that's the painting that they're referring to when they're talking about that scene in the movie, because it is
Oh.
incredibly weird and moody in the background. And there's all these like gnarled trees and so forth. So that I'm pretty sure is what Tom's joking about. I first saw this when I was taking a history of art class in, I believe, 7th grade. And
Did you actually see like the real work, or you're just looking at a print of it inside of an art book?
I was looking at a slide of it the first time, because this was back in the day when slides were very common in art classes, in the late 80s. So yeah, it was projected onto a screen. And part of what that meant is that it was being, so to speak, painted with light.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that led to it having this real intensity of this dramatic, contrasty background with the blue sky with the black and the white in huge shapes.
Yeah.
And then this very dark and shadowy landscape on this hill, I guess, going into a river. It's a very, let's say, goth painting in that way. And having it be lit up, so to speak, from behind. Now, I guess that's not quite how it works in slides, but having light playing with that was incredibly effective, and my jaw dropped. This was, I think, the first work of art that I encountered that I had that kind of experience with. That sense of like, wow, I need to be that painting. That painting needs to be a part of my life.
Yes.
And because I was growing up in New York City, I could go see it.
Oh my gosh, where is this?
It's at the Met.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Where in the Met? Would it be inside of all of their stuff from Spain? Is it just with other artworks?
I think it's with other artwork from the period.
Okay.
But
it must be so weird to see it next to other artworks from the period, because this looks like you're saying this is from the 1600s, 1500s?
It's from about 1600, yeah.
And it looks modern. It doesn't have the fine detail that you would expect from all of the portraits that would have been done. It almost looks impressionistic in parts.
Yeah. So again, Mannerism was all about sort of stretching things out and distorting them for emotional effect.
Yeah. Wow.
There's a famous modernist Madonna and Child painting called The Madonna with the Long Neck, which is absolutely wild in its proportions.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I just sent it to you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Everything's too long by half. The neck is really long. Baby Jesus is
creepy.
Not baby, and is very long.
Yeah. Dang.
It's wild. None of them are quite wild in that same way that El Greco's paintings tend to be wild, in the sense that he uses a lot of really rough coloring.
Mm-hmm,
I'll send you also his Laocoon painting.
Okay.
Of Laocoon and the myth of Laocoon and his sons being devoured by snakes. There's a famous sculpture of it in the Met as well. But this is a painting he did, and you see that same color scheme, that same weird use of darkness, and the same strange texture to his, as well as the exaggerated proportions of the body. Anyway, remarkable stuff.
Ooh. Gosh, that painting almost looks like a Picasso, the way it's composed.
Exactly. The composition and the sort of exaggerated features, it looks like a sort of blue period Picasso. Totally. I went and saw the View of Toledo at the Met shortly after seeing it in class and getting all
Mhm.
excited about the fact that it was in my city. It was a few blocks away from my school. I could go see it.
Look at that. I mean, growing up in New York City, you almost feel like everything's at your fingertips, so you hardly know where to begin. It's awesome to be inspired to go out and see something.
Absolutely. Let me tell you, I was very disappointed.
Is it just because it wasn't lit up in the same sort of way?
Basically, yes. I saw it in this incredibly dramatic way. And then when I saw the actual painting, it wasn't doing the same thing. Now I still look at it and think it's amazing. But, when I was
Mhm.
12 or whatever, I was like, oh, it's not the sublime moment I had when I first saw it. Also, I had seen it at that point. So
Yes.
there's always that moment when you first see a great work of art that resonates with you,
It's true.
where you're overwhelmed by it.
Isn't that what the artist tries to do, though, is to have you experience that sublime moment every time you see something? And isn't that an impossibility to feel that sense of the sublime with the same sort of dramatization that you would have the first time? Oh my gosh.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know if I want to say all art does that, but that's certainly one thing artists can do.
Mhm.
And certainly a thing that seems to be going on with this painting. And yeah, I don't know. I need to see it in person again now. My sensibilities have changed, and where I am with this painting and where I am with art in general has changed. And that's one of the fun things about art, etc.
How big is it in real life?
It is about 4 inches. Sorry, not inches. About
Whoa.
4 feet. It's about 4 feet square.
Square,
It's not quite
okay.
square, but it's close.
Because that's the other thing. Like when I've seen paintings inside of art books, when I've studied art, you don't have any sense for the scale of it. I mean, sure, there's numbers that tell you the scale, but you can't. It just doesn't translate in my mind. I have a hard time imagining. And so sometimes there are works of art that when I see them, I'm like, I imagine this way bigger.
Sure, the Mona Lisa is the most famous example of that,
Yes, most definitely.
which is postage stamp size. It feels like it's actually like, I don't know, piece of paper size.
Certainly compared to your expectation, it's postage size. So,
Yeah.
I mean, according to its reputation, it should be way bigger than life. And it's, slightly
It's-
smaller.
It's in a whole room by itself, so that also makes it feel even smaller. But
Yeah, it's true. Wow.
yeah, I don't know. I got excited when they riffed about El Greco and this bit, and made me think about all of that, and I wanted to share it with you.
Awesome.
And then maybe if we end up in New York together sometime, we can go to the Met and we can see this painting in person.
And I'll see if I have the same experience that you do.